This is what a 67-year-old nerd looks like. I'm Ed, and this is Marcia. So I'm the guy that's going to be talking tonight, but I wanted you to meet our amazing crew that makes the magic happen, and we have become like family with these guys. And one of the things that we've learned over the years is you can't do anything truly grand without an amazing team, and that is these guys. I grew up in an Andy Mayberry town, a little town called Long Grove in Illinois, and we had a dog named Bones, and Bones was a big, skinny, black Labrador. And Bones came up missing one day, and we all looked for him, the whole family, and we were fearing for the worst because we lived on a busy road that was 65 miles an hour, and we lost a lot of pets to that road. And so it was about dusk, and my best friend Bob Taylor and I decided to give it one more shot. So we went calling for him, and we went to my grandparents' barn and opened the door, and out bounded Bones. Apparently, he'd been sleeping in the hay because we'd been in there looking for him. So on the way to the house, I had an idea. And so Bob hoisted me up to my bedroom window from outside, and I got a bottle of stage blood. And I put the stage blood on my hands, on the backs of my hands, and I picked up Bones. Now, Bones partially got his name because when you picked him up, he became like a sack of potatoes. He would just go motionless and flop. And so I walked into the living room, and the whole family's in there. And there was just this collective groan of horror and sadness. And my mom, I'm sure thinking Bones is dripping blood on the carpet, she's like, take him outside, take him outside. And with that, I just dropped him on the floor, and he jumped and bounced around the room, gave everybody kisses. And I learned from that experience the fun of scaring people and making them laugh. And I carried that through my entire career. I was basically a monster kid. I loved The Outer Limits and Star Trek. I was a little different, though, because I didn't just like the monsters. I wanted to be a monster. Not Godzilla, more like a big-headed, pointed-eared kind of guy. And my childhood was magical to me. I had wonderful parents and siblings, and yet as I got into my teen years, I started messing that up. I started taking drugs, and one night I OD'd, and my skin turned green. Now, I don't even know how this is possible, but I had turned Frankenstein green. And as I got older, I went through a bankruptcy, divorce. I even had a nervous breakdown, I think that's what it was, at the bank. I was talking to my loan officer. Anyway. And so that went on, and the years went by. On the positive side, I became a follower of Jesus Christ. However, I'm not very good at it. And I also started Distortions Unlimited, which was a monster-making factory. By the mid-'80s, Marcia joined Distortions, and together we became the Scream Team. And over the years, we tried to innovate and come up with new crazy things. And it was hard. We had to learn how to run a business, work with people. And early on, there was a giant distributor in Charlotte, North Carolina that bought our stuff. So we had to make gargantuan amounts of monsters and monster blood and all the stuff. And we had tremendous highs, and we had rough times too, but we kept going, and we learned the power of perseverance, which sounds really good, but it's basically we were just too stupid to stop. And we kept going, and a few of the highlights were, in 1989, Batman hit. Now, this was a big deal in 89 with Jack Nicholson, and we had gotten the license to produce Batman from the studio, and we had like 3 months between when we got the license and October 31st, that first year. And we made over 100,000 Batman masks and costume parts for Batman. And at that point, we had 75 people. We had a conveyor system. At speed, we were doing a Batman every 3.5 seconds, and it was quite a thing to see. And then later, we got into the haunted house business, started making props, and we had our own haunted house, and we got to know Alice Cooper, who turned out to be a really nice guy, and we've worked with him for years. But we ended up selling Brutal Planet to Six Flags. They wanted to, after we'd run it about 3 years, they wanted to open up 16 Brutal Planets all over the country. And this was quite a feat because each Brutal Planet took about $100,000 of our product, and that was times 16. And by the time they finally got the contract signed, we had 14 weeks to do that. And this stuff is tough to make. But anyway, that still amazes me to this day. But the most amazing prop, or at least the one that changed us the most in the industry, was a thing we called the electric chair. And this was a life-size chair with a man on it, rubber man, and we put a giant motor in it and a pulley and just shook the tar out of this thing, and it smoked and screamed. And so we took it to a Halloween trade show that year, and the industry, I thought, it was $3,800. I thought we'd be doing good to sell 6. We sold over 200 of those the first year, and they went out across the country, and there was like a grassroots thing of people talking about it, and the newspapers came out, and attendance doubled and tripled for a lot of these haunted houses. And by making this product, we accidentally changed our whole industry and ourselves in the process, and Distortions. And so but as a side note, we didn't know what we were doing, and this thing shook so violently that we had to replace 100 bodies that first year because the head would fly off at the people watching it. By now, we felt like we'd done it all, from little cut-off fingers to the giant queen alien from Aliens. And we did, as you saw in the video, a 155-foot beast that you would go through the mouth, through the lungs and heart and intestines, and come out and so I was sitting in my office, and we sold a bunch of those. I was sitting in my office one night, and I was looking at the pictures on the wall and the monsters in my office, and I was thinking, what we do for a living does not match with what we believe is important spiritually. So I talked with Marcia about it, and we decided to sell the company. And so we hired a broker, and one night a buying group came up from Denver. It was about 6 or 8 people. And it turned out to be a really weird night because we were sitting around the conference table talking, and all of a sudden our broker slaps his hands on the table and stands up and starts shouting, "Are you buying or selling?" And the guy was shouting back. And I honestly thought I was going to have to break up a fight. And then we're talking about adults in suits. But anyway, it settled down, and so everybody was wandering around the studio looking at things. And this older gentleman came up to me and said, "I'm a retired pastor in Denver, and I've been listening to you and Marcia, and I'm looking at what you've done here, and I have this very strong sense that you are not to sell this business, that this is your ministry." And I didn't tell him, but I'm like, God and monsters, that's a ministry? But we took his advice. We took it off the market, and he was right. Shortly thereafter, we got picked up for a television show that ran 3 years called Making Monsters. And this thing was amazing. It was a really, really good show, and the crew and the production company, everybody was amazing. But another thing happened, and that was the internet came of its own, and we started to get letters and emails from people, and there was always a distance between us because our distributor would sell to the retailers would sell to customers, and there was a wall there. And so suddenly that was broken, and we started getting thousands of emails thanking us and like saying we changed their life and things like this. And I'm thinking, dude, we're just making a living. But it was really gratifying and heartwarming to get these letters. And so what we learned from that was that it's not about the monsters. It is, but it isn't. It's much deeper than that. It's about people and kindness that was shown us over the years where we were having problems or whatever. That was really what was important. So Marcia is going to read an email that, just to give you an idea, we were just at a trade show a month or so ago, and we got this email just to show you what people think of monsters, I guess.
Yeah, so this is just a recent email we got after we got back from the trade show. We just got back from Transworld, and I needed to reach out. My son Aiden was able to meet Ed at the event and get a photo taken with him. I know Ed was besieged by throngs throughout the convention, but I needed him to know how much the 5 minutes he gave Aiden mattered to my family. Aiden suffers from a debilitating anxiety disorder. Every day of the convention, Aiden struggled massively to get to the convention. Every day we tried over and over to get to Ed, but he was always surrounded. But on our final day there, we got Aiden to the booth where Ed was again engaged with someone. As their conversation ended, and with Aiden too overwhelmed to speak, I called out to Ed to introduce them. Even though Ed didn't know us, he quickly engaged Aiden. It was a stunningly joyful moment for my family. Please share this with Ed, and please let him know how much his kindness and your company means to my son. To say Aiden is a big fan is an understatement. You guys have really helped his life through the enjoyment and inspiration of your work. Please share with your team their long-term impact on people's lives. It is amazing to watch, and we are forever grateful.
So I believe we're where we're supposed to be, and I do believe that this is our ministry.
And we love it.